Hi everybody, welcome to a new episode of the vlog. You guys may remember, not too long ago I made a video on the history of the legendary Canadian band April Wine. At the time I made that video, I would have considered anything that got anywhere near 100 views to be a big success for me, and that video is currently at 6,000 views and counting. It's my most popular video on this channel. It blows my mind. Thank you all so much for watching that. I am so glad that I really hit on something that you guys all really enjoyed. So I was thinking, what other legendary Canadian bands can I talk about? And had to go with Chilliwack. I love Chilliwack, from Vancouver, BC, named after the city of Chilliwack, BC. And I had mentioned in my April Wine video that I was a little sad that April Wine hadn't gotten the same recognition in America that they did in Canada. I was proven wrong by the comment section. I have heard from people from all corners of the United States of America who are huge April Wine fans and informed me that while they may not have been perennial chart toppers in the States, they had quite the fan base down there. So I stand corrected on that. Chilliwack was a band that I believe did have some crossover success, but certainly less than April Wine, I think. And anyway, I'm going to get right into their history because it is fascinating and complicated. I had a hard time researching for this video because Chilliwack have had a lot of lineup changes in their, like I say in the title of this video, 60 years. They haven't spent 60 years as Chilliwack, but their lineage dates back this far. I had always known that they were formed as the Collectors, but in researching this video, I found this awesome article that I'll link to in the description from the Canadian Encyclopedia that goes into a lot of detail about their history and lineup changes. And I found out that they were actually founded way back in 1961 as the C-Fun Classics. C-Fun being the radio station in Vancouver, a top 40/rock radio station that was very popular at the time. They were kind of the house band for that radio station. Bill Henderson was not a part of that group yet, and I'm not actually sure what the exact lineup was. It would have certainly featured Howie Vickers on vocals, and it may have included Carol Lawrence on the sax and keys, and Glenn Miller on the bass. I'm not sure how that lineup came to be. That would be the lineup. Oh, and also, I gotta mention Ross Turney on the drums as well. Not sure if all of them were involved in the original C-Fun All-Stars or not. It's hard to track who was in that band. Let me know in the comments if you know. But yeah, they were the C-Fun house band. And then in 1964, they got another really cool gig on CBC television as the house band for a show called Let's Go. I believe Howie Vickers actually hosted the show Let's Go. And for that show, they were just called The Classics. Bill Henderson eventually joined the Classics in 1966. Oof, I shouldn't have done this video with the window open. Allergies, am I right? Anyway, Bill Henderson eventually joined the Classics in 1966, and they continued to be the house band for that Let's Go show until 1968, when I believe that show ended, and Howie Vickers got another job as a presenter on CBC, so he left the band. And by this point, though, they were starting to go by their new name, the Collectors, and Bill Henderson was taking up his spot as lead singer in the group. It is by this point that the lineup of the band was Bill Henderson, Howie Vickers, Claire Lawrence, Glenn Miller, and Ross Turney. They were kind of one of the first bands out of Vancouver to have some big success. I mean, this is before the MAPL radio regulations on Canadian content started to come into play in about 1971 or so. So, pretty cool that they were able to do some really good stuff on at least the regional charts in the late 60s. They had a debut album in 1968. They put out the album Grass and Wild Strawberries in 1969. And I learned this. I thought this was really cool. They did the music for this short film called The Land, which was shown at Expo 70, the 1970 Expo in Osaka, Japan, in the Canadian Pavilion. So they were representing their country, and I think that's really cool. I was able to find this collector's single recently that I was very excited to find. It's got Listen to the Words on this side. It's got Fisher Woman on this side. To be frank with you, I'm actually not 100% sure which of those sides is the A side. I really need to get into the collectors more. Anyway, in 1969, 1970 or so, the collectors were reformed into Chilliwack. By this point, Bill Henderson had sort of taken up the role as the leader of the group, and he elected to call the band Chilliwack based on they weren't from the city of Chilliwack, but I think Bill had seen the city name on maps and driving around and such, and just always really liked it. And he also liked that Chilliwack is a Salish term meaning the Valley of Many Streams. He thought that was really nice because the band came from a lot of different musical backgrounds and played a lot of different styles. So we thought Valley of Many Streams also described their music as well. They started going by the name Chilliwack in 1970, and their first album, simply called Chilliwack, actually the first two albums are called Chilliwack. It's kind of complicated. But they signed, to Parrot Records, and they put out a debut album in 1970, which had the song Reno. I don't know if it was a hit right off the bat, but it's certainly a staple in their live shows, and one of their more played songs on Canadian radio to this day. And then they followed it up by, I guess they left Parrot or were dropped by Parrot or something, and they went over to A&M Records and made another album called Chilliwack, which was actually, I believe, a double album in 1971. That had a great song called Lonesome Mary on it. I think it took a couple of years for it to become a major hit. I was reading that it became a hit in 1973, which would have been about 2 years after its original release. But again, that is another one of the many, many, many Chilliwack songs that is still constantly played on Canadian radio, just everywhere. And then they had another album, I believe, also on A&M called All Over You in 1972. And around the time Lonesome Mary was becoming a hit in 1973, a guy named, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation here, Howard Froese? Sorry, Froese? I'm so sorry, I don't know quite how to pronounce that. He joins the group on guitar in 1973, and that sort of cements the classic lineup, what a lot of people consider to be the classic lineup of Chilliwack. So throughout the first half of the 1970s, Chilliwack was really bouncing around from label to label. Like I said, they'd been on Parrot, and they'd been on A&M Records, and then they moved over to Goldfish Records in 1974 to make an album that was... I'm just reading the liner notes of this album as we speak right now, and got a lot of important names on there. It's been produced by Mike Flicker, who would... and it was recorded at Can Bass Studios in Vancouver, which just last week I made a trip out to the Can Bass Studios building, which still stands in downtown Vancouver. Mike Flicker was the big name producer they had there. And of course, this is also co-produced by Terry Jacks, of all people. And this album has the absolutely massive hit, in Canada at least, a song called Crazy Talk. Again, like in that, like in the April Wine video I did, let me know if you're from America and you know these classic Chilliwack tunes, because I'm not sure the extent of their popularity in the States. This song also has, or this album rather, also has the song There's Something That I Like About That. Great song. This is their only album for Goldfish Records. They went to like an even smaller label, Casino Records. I personally haven't really heard of Casino Records other than for this album. They made this Rocker Box album, which in the grand scheme of all of the Chilliwack albums, I think this was probably the least of a hit. I don't think this one was a massive success, but yeah, their only album for Casino before they moved over to the new upstart label. Well, it'd been around for a couple of years, but the label Mushroom. Mushroom, also based out of that same Can Bass Studios / Mushroom Studios building I was just talking about. And they would make 3 albums from Mushroom in the late 70s, and they're considered 3 of their greatest albums of all time. The first one is in the record frame behind me. It's the classic Dreams, 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 with such major hit songs as Fly at Night. It's also got California Girl, the big hit, Baby Blue. All these songs get played all the time on the radio here in Canada. And of course, a re-recorded new version of the song Reno. So they've now done that song twice, and I frankly can't really decide which version of that song I like better. In 1978, they added a new member, and oh, what a new member they added. They wanted to add some more punch on guitar, so they added yet another guitarist, and they picked the one and only Brian McLeod. Brian Too Loud McLeod. Just awesome. And he really fills in the Chilliwack sound in an incredible way on their next album, 1978's Lights from the Valley, another great album, so named for the song Arms of Mary. Not an original song. Chilliwack did not write the song. It was written by Ian Sutherland, performed by the Sutherland Brothers, and was a big hit for them. Chilliwack covered it, and just looking at their Wikipedia article, they seem to say that the Sutherland Brothers had their original version is the most popular version of the song, but that is not true in Canada. We in Canada think of Arms of Mary as a Chilliwack song. In 1978, there was a pretty big uprisal within the band. Major lineup changes that year, in which Howard Frazee, or however you pronounce that, sorry about that, Howard, he left the group, as did Ross Turney and Glenn Miller. And in this big lineup change, I mean, Claire Lawrence was now gone, Glenn Miller was gone, so was Ross Turney. The whole band was sort of flipped on its head. And they got some new members, though. I mean, they kept Brian McLeod. They gained John Rolls on guitar, Rick Taylor on the drums, and the great Ab Bryant on bass. I actually wanted to do a video on Ab Bryant for a while, because the bassist from not only Chilliwack, but he's also the original bassist from Prism, and then, of course, went on later, as I will get to, with McLeod for the group the Headpins. So he's been the bassist for 3 iconic Canadian groups. Yeah, crazy. And they made another new album in 1979 called Breakdown in Paradise. I was very happy to find an original copy of this on Mushroom, because I have read that this album was a pain in the ass to distribute. That Mushroom Records had a real hard time distributing this because they were pretty much flat out of money. This was one of the last releases before Mushroom Records closed up shop for good in 1979, and that left some of its artists, Chilliwack included, in a sort of state of limbo. And speaking of a state of limbo, the band continues to change. John Rolls, the new guitarist, leaves after just 1 album. New drummer Rick Taylor also leaves after just 1 album. So Bill Henderson still in the group, Ab Bryant still in the group, and Brian Too Loud McLeod are still in the group, and they sort of just become a trio for their next release. They signed with Solid Gold Records, which is Millennium Records in the States. So, yeah, distributed by Solid Gold in Canada, Millennium in the States, to make their epic, oh, that's the wrong album. The real album is in the frame behind me. Their amazing Wanna Be a Star album. It's a concept album, and it's massive. It's got some big hits. It's got some big hits in the States, too, for sure. I know that album was definitely big in the States, as was the hit single My Girl, a.k.a. Gone, Gone, Gone. Just a great song. That album's also got the excellent song I Believe, as well as many, many more. That's another great album you gotta listen to, and it's followed up in 1982 by the album I had already showed you. This is Opus 10, aka Opus X, but it's their 10th album. It's Opus 10. And yeah, What You Gonna Do, aka What You Gonna Do When I'm Gone, major hit on Canadian radio. They just keep making big hits. Then in 1983, guess what? More shakeups in Chilliwack land. They were really only a trio, with some other instruments being filled in by studio musicians, but by this point, Ab Bryant and Brian McLeod would leave the group to found the Great Headpins. Or I believe they'd actually already founded Headpins and were sort of in the group as a side project. But by this point, Headpins were gaining enough steam that they felt they needed to leave Chilliwack to make this their full-time project, of course, with the great Darby Mills on lead vocals. But Bill Henderson elects to continue the band and continue the legacy that is Chilliwack. And he hires a bunch of studio musicians, including, let me read here, Simon Phillips, Mo Foster, Richard Gibbs, and Ashley Mulford. And they first record a couple of songs for this, which would become the Segway album, aka Chilliwack's Greatest Hits, which I did get signed by the great Bill Henderson himself, and the rest of Chilliwack's current touring lineup, which we will get to later. But yes, they recorded 2 new songs. I don't know if they were big hits, but I loved them as a kid because my family had this Greatest Hits album, which are the songs Don't Stop and Getting Better. Loved both of those songs as a kid, and those songs I believe would both wind up on the next Chilliwack album, which came out in 1984, and it was called Look In, Look Out. I mean, you could make the argument that it's effectively a Bill Henderson solo album with studio musicians, but by this point, Bill Henderson kind of is Chilliwack, so he uses the Chilliwack name, and then he puts a band together for the purpose of touring in the 80s, and so here's the touring lineup from 1984. Here's the interesting thing here. Claire Lawrence is back. Claire Lawrence, a member of the Collectors, joins the touring version of Chilliwack in 1984. I think that's awesome. You also have Jerry Adolphi on the drums, Brian Newcomb on the bass, Dave Pickle on the keys, and yeah, of course, Bill Henderson. Dave Pickle would be eventually replaced by John Rolls in the keyboard spot, and then Chilliwack would continue touring until Bill Henderson elects to disband the group for good, for now, in 1988. Also, Headpins had disbanded in 1986. In the meantime, Bill Henderson and Brian McLeod would start their own production team. They produced some albums for the Irish Rovers and the Nylons, among others. And McLeod would also produce for DOA, Loverboy. I believe he'd write some songs with Bryan Adams. Kept doing a lot of work. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer in the early 90s. In 1991, there was an epic benefit concert to raise money for him. I believe they raised over $500,000. Bill Henderson played at the benefit concert. I know Bryan Adams played there as well, and they had a whole bunch of big names out there to help support him, and it did a very good job of that. Unfortunately, the great Brian Too Loud McLeod passed away in 1992, and his legacy lives on. He's just such a well-respected musician in the not only the Canadian music scene, but he just brought so much to the world of music, and a very sad loss for sure. There's really no way to segue out of that. That is horrible. I believe he was only 39 years old. But I know Bill Henderson did continue to do some production work for Long John Baldry for Toronto as well. He would found a group called UHF along with Sherry Elrich and Roy Forbes in 1989. And he was a busy guy because in the meantime he was the director for the Songwriters Association of Canada as well as SOCAN, the Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers of Canada, of which I am a member, as I have recorded and released a couple of albums of my own, but I'm not going to get into the shameless self-promotion yet. But yeah, he was the director of SOCAN for a while. Very, very, very important agency for music here in Canada. And he was also, I read this on that Canadian Encyclopedia article. I had no idea there was ever a Canadian version of Sesame Street, but apparently there was from 1989 to 95, and he was the musical director for that show as well. So, Interesting. I did not know that. Bill Henderson would go on to reform Chilliwack in 1997 for the specific purpose of having a touring group to play in the summer touring circuit. And Chilliwack have been perennially successful at doing that every year since 1997, with the exception of these last couple due to the pandemic. But the 1997 newly reformed lineup of Chilliwack was as follows. You had, of course, the great Bill Henderson. And then you also had Jerry Adolphi on drums, who had rejoined from being a member of the 1980s touring version of Chilliwack. You had Doug Edwards on the bass, the late great Doug Edwards, and Roy Forbes from UHF on the guitar, although he was replaced fairly quickly by Bill Henderson's brother, Ed Henderson, on guitar. He does a great job on guitar. They made a live album called There and Back Live in 2003, which was a culmination of like 3 or 4 years of recording some of their live shows and picking the best material. Great live album there for sure. And continued to tour through the 2000s and through the 2010s. Unfortunately, Doug Edwards got sick in 2013 and was replaced on bass by Mr. Gord Maxwell, who's still in Chilliwack to this day. Doug Edwards, unfortunately, passed away after a long illness in 2016. Very sad. And Chilliwack's been making some new music lately. They did a song called Take Back This Land in 2015. Great song, actually. Especially great when you consider it's their first song in 30 years. That was the first Chilliwack song in, I guess, 31 years. And then they also did a song called Sky High that I saw Chilliwack live. I've seen Chilliwack live twice now, once in 2015 and once in 2017. And the second time I saw them in 2017 was their first time doing this new song. So that was really cool. So Chilliwack is flirting with the concept of making new music. Again, they've released some new music. It is super cool to see. And in 2021, after, yes, 60 years together, Chilliwack lives on. And I really do hope that maybe this summer, maybe more likely next summer, we'll get to see at least one more live Chilliwack tour. We'll get to see Bill Henderson and the guys go out again and tour again. I'd love to see it. I'll be right there in the audience. That'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching Chilliwack Icons in Canada and beyond. Yeah, thanks for watching. Check out the description for links to where you can find my own music. I'm a musician. I find my own music where it's sold or streamed online. For the first time in a long time, I actually have a list of some upcoming live performances of my own that I'm going to be playing coming up. I actually have a live touring schedule. Small one, but a live touring schedule nonetheless in that description. Also in the description, I'm going to put links to the wonderful article from the Encyclopedia of Canada that I was able to do a lot of research from this video through that article, so thanks for that. And also I made a video a couple of weeks ago where I went down to the studio where Chilliwack recorded a lot of their hits, down to Mushroom Records, the original building where those studios were housed in back in the 70s. It's still there, and I went down there, so check out that video as well. Like this video if you like what you saw, subscribe to my channel if you've been enjoying my videos, and you can ring the notification bell if you want to be notified whenever I upload a new video, which should be real soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll have plenty more cool music history content to come. Thanks for watching.